Hey everybody, I'm Sam Haymart, and this is Growing Older Gay's Gay Kitchen Table Talk, episode 48 for the 1st of March, 2026. Damn, we're in March already. Today we're talking about a pretty singular topic, and that is consent and etiquette for gay men out there in the play spaces. And it's broken up into a couple pieces and parts, and I'm going to check in and do our normal things in our episode, but as always, I like to start with our daily inspiration, which comes from our social media, which is Growing Older Gay on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky. We don't do the X because the X is just gross. And today's daily inspiration is simply this, very topical to our episode today. Consent is sexy. Consent is sexy. This was something that has been a campaign. It's been a public service announcement. It has been, I honestly think some people are bothered by it out there in the play spaces and in the bars, but I've seen the stickers, I've seen the campaigns, because when gay men get together and we're in tight spaces together, the lines get blurred. They do. And sometimes, especially if people are imbibing, they really get blurred and people get upset. And attitudes flare, and then drama ensues. And sometimes people do things that are just inappropriate no matter where you're at, let alone in a play space. The basic principle of consent is always ask before engaging. Now, there's a lot of ways to ask. There's the verbal question, can I do this? Can I kiss you? Can I X, Y, or Z? There's other types of consent. There's body language consent. There's eyes. You can lock eyes with somebody and say a lot of things. But when you're going to up the ante and escalate a physical interaction, it's always best to ask, especially if you don't know the person. Gear is not consent. We see it out in the clubs, especially on gear night or leather night or underwear night or fill in the blank, where we have these gatherings where people are wearing gear. They have a harness, they've got a jock strap, they have all sorts of things on that suggest they're ready to jump in the sling and go for it. But just because they're wearing this gear does not automatically give your hands consent to touch, to feel, to roam, to insert, to do anything like that. This is somebody who you might see in a latex outfit, and the first thing you want to do is touch it and feel it and see what it feels like. Chances are they're going to be okay with that, because I've worn latex and that's just part of the deal. People want to see what it feels like, especially when it's all oiled up. But there are people out there who are not necessarily comfortable with that. Now, there is this thing called implied consent. Let's say you're in a sex club where there is a sex party going on. That is like a first level of implied consent. That is telling anyone who might run into you there that you might be ready and willing to do just about anything. But it does not automatically give you the right to start engaging with that person without asking. Implied consent might be somebody in a sling, ready to go. That does not mean that anyone and everyone is automatically welcome to come up and start going at it. It just depends on the situation. And as adults, experienced people in this scene, we have to learn to look at body language, look at the language of the eyes, and if you don't have absolute certainty that you have consent to move forward with something, ask. There's also situational consent, and that is, I have friends out there who I have known for a long time. We have interacted for a long time, many times. I don't necessarily always need to ask consent for certain things. It's implied because of our past history, our past relationship. But there are still times where somebody, even though we might be simpatico, it never hurts if maybe they're in a mood or you're sensing something different. Maybe they're, in a different space than you normally expect to see them. Maybe they're with a new boyfriend and you don't want to just lay into your normal behavior with them right in front of that person. There is situational consent, which means sometimes it's okay to proceed because of past history, past relationships. but you still always need to sort of have that adjuster right there ready to move up and down. Consent is sexy. I have done it. I have been in the clubs. I have been in the places and the play spaces, and I do my best always before I touch, before I grab, before I start playing with something. I ask. There have been times when I have heard a person say, "Thank you for asking." And then we had a wonderful time. So yeah, consent is sexy. So before we move on to our topic of the day, I'm going to check in. And first of all, if you're watching us on YouTube, I am wearing a singlet today. This is I love wearing singlets. It's one of my favorite things to do. I like to wear them under my clothes sometimes just because of the way it feels. I love the way they look. And as an aging guy who's starting to get a little bit of a dad bod, it smooths out some things. It sort of compensates a little bit. I just love the way it makes me feel. And I have plenty of them. And today that's what I'm wearing. A wrestling singlet. It's blue and gold. It's not about a team or my favorite group of people. It's just, it looked good in the catalog. So yeah, there's that. But I work from home in my day job, and that started in December. And boy, it's been an adjustment, I have to tell you. And I've been self-employed prior to having this day job where I work now for a long time. And I always worked from home. I had a home office. And so when they said, "You're going to go work from home," I wasn't entirely disappointed. I wasn't threatened by it. I was kind of like, okay, been there, done that. But it has been an adjustment nonetheless, because it has its advantages. It has its disadvantages. Working from home, if you've got a good workspace, is kind of nice. You get to be at home, first of all, and I tend to be very comfortable in my home. I don't have to commute anymore. I don't have to deal with commute traffic. I don't have to spend 20, 30 minutes of my day going both directions and losing that time to that. So there's some benefits there. I haven't purchased gasoline for my own vehicle in, 6 to 8 weeks because it sits most of the time, and my puttering around town doesn't empty the tank very quickly. So that has been a nice thing. But there are adjustments that one has to make for your own mental, physical, and spiritual health when you start working from home. And the first one I have on my list here is that it requires extra diligence for diet. First of all, I have found that I'm going to just be honest with all of you. In the 3 months that I have been working from home, I have gained about 15 pounds. And that's for a number of reasons. I'm not getting up and walking around the office. I'm not walking from the parking lot to the office. I'm not doing that the way I used to. And my kitchen is right next door. I can go grab a snack. I can go have another coffee with creamer in it. I'm having a hard time with that. I'll be honest with you. I'm having a tough time with that. Now, exercise, that is part of the deal. I have to make a concerted effort now to get up out of my chair on my breaks and on my lunch to go take a walk around the block, to go outside, to get out of the house. I have to, after work is over, I don't just shift gears and move to the living room and watch TV. I try to get out. I try to get out and meet people, because one of the things I liked about working at the office was actually interacting with other employees that I liked, that I worked with. That was sort of the highlight of the day, if I'm honest, was getting out and interacting with people. Well, that went away with working at home. It's very solitary. It's a very solitary existence. And so now, after work, I find myself looking for things to go do. Sometimes I'll just go sit at a restaurant and have dinner if I have nothing else to do. My husband and I get together and we do things. We go for walks. I go shopping, whatever. I'm in 12-step recovery, so I will go find a meeting to go to more often than I used to, because it's something to do and somewhere to go to be with people. And so it's a compensating factor. Because of the isolation, because of being locked down, I now have to sort of squeeze the balloon into another area. The last thing on my list here that required the adjustment is that there's a conscious change of environment that's necessary. And by that, I mean sort of what I talked about is getting up away from your workspace into another part of the house when you're not working. Part of the crux of my matter is that this studio we're sitting in right now is right across the desk from my other workspace. And so I like to spend a lot of time editing video. I do a lot of time creating content. I do a lot of things on my personal computer that are play, that are fun, that are creative, that are not part of my job, yet I'm in the same room. And so I'm finding that to be a little bit of something to get my head around and get over, because at the end of my workday, I may have a long list of things to do relative to creative things I want to do on my computer. I might have to sit down and record a video like this. I may have to do any number of things that require me to still be in this room. And it's hard to do that sometimes. At the end of the day, I just want to get out. And so I'm still working on that. Working from home is something that a lot of us do now, especially after COVID. When we went into COVID, it was a no-brainer for me. I'd been doing it for 20 years and I'd learned a lot of this stuff, but having gotten back out into the world and then coming back, it's been an adjustment. And there are a lot of books, there are a lot of resources out there online if you want to Google this work from home, best practices and habits, but it really is, at the end of the day, all about having the discipline not to get up and graze, having the discipline to get up and get out of the office and treat yourself to a new environment and treat yourself to social, get out and do things. Yeah. And that's my check-in from home. So I want to talk today, our main topic today is about Playspace etiquette. And this comes to mind because I've had recent conversations with people where they have talked to me about their experiences either at the bathhouse, the sex party, or maybe they've gone out to a certain club. The common refrain from people and certain personalities out there, they always have the same experience no matter where they go. And they'll say things like, oh, nobody there is interested in me, or I'm just tired of the bad attitude that everybody has, or I don't go there anymore because of X, Y, and Z, or this or that. It got me to thinking about my own experiences in those places where I've experienced those things. And so attitude, what is that? That's when maybe you're approaching somebody or you've indicated desire to hang out with people and you've kind of gotten the cold shoulder, or maybe you've been ignored, or maybe you're flat out told, back off. I don't want to be, don't hang around me, whatever. I've seen it happen out there. I've had it happen to me in certain instances. And what I have found in my own experience is that wherever I go, there I am. If I'm going to different places and I keep having the same experience with people that's maybe a negative experience, and then I go to a different place over here and I have the same experience there, that everyone has this attitude or that everyone doesn't want anything to do with me, or I keep getting rejected, I have found over life and in my times that wherever I go, there I am. Maybe I need to be looking at what my expectations are. I need to maybe be looking at what I'm bringing to the table. I maybe need to be looking at, how am I approaching this? How am I treating people? What is how are they seeing me? How are they experiencing me? And do I need to do something about that? Particularly in the play spaces and in the club scene, what I see most often to be the issue for people is just common etiquette. And that sort of gets to this consent conversation that we had at the opening of our episode. What I know from being in my mid-50s now and having a lot of friends in my mid-50s that still run into these problems is that just because we're more mature doesn't mean that we're well adjusted socially. There are a lot of us out there who haven't figured it out yet and haven't learned good social skills or haven't learned manners. There are a lot of people my age that you'd think would have learned manners by now, but no, I still see them doing things, or I have them do things to me that just kind of make me go, really? Didn't you leave that in high school? The bottom line is that when we go into a play space, a club, we need to bring a good attitude. We need to leave our expectations at the door. Because if we have expectations that are out of line with reality, or maybe we've got a list of expectations of what we're going to get, or who we're going to meet, or how it's going to go, and at the first couple of instances, it doesn't start meeting that, our attitude can change. It can become negative. It can become put offish. It can become disappointed. And then that comes out of us at people. They can sense that. we need to bring a willingness to let whatever experience comes our way be the experience that comes our way. Sometimes it's going to be fantastic. Other times it might not. Whenever I go to the local men's club and I pay my fee to get in, my measure of success when I leave that place is, did I get my $20 worth or whatever the fee is, right? And I tend to be done once I feel like I've gotten my money's worth. My point is our expectations and our attitude can completely change the way we think of an experience and how we measure the success in that experience. Always bring confidence. Confidence is sexy. Consent is sexy, but confidence is sexy. In that same way, be self-aware of who you are, right? If I am in my mid-50s, while I'm told I'm good looking, I understand that I don't have the fit body of the fine pictures you see on Instagram. I am not going into a men's club and throwing myself at 20 and 30-year-olds that do have that. I'm not saying I won't interact with them, but I am not pushing my way into their space and assuming with confidence that I'm what they're looking for. I have self-awareness in the fact that I am who I am and I love who I am. I don't mean that I look at myself in the mirror and I don't see something I like and I'm taking that into the place when I say self-aware. I'm just saying self-aware being, I understand who I am and what I have to offer. I believe what I have to offer people is good for the right person who's looking for that, but I don't assume everybody wants that. So that's what self-awareness is just know who you are, what you're about, and don't push yourself into places that logic would tell you you may not always be what they're looking for. Be friendly and willing to converse. One of the things that has surprised me in these spaces is the person that says, so how are you doing? Where are you from? What do you do for a living? And I'm thinking, what? You want to talk about that in here? There's people in the sling getting railed right there. There's people over there. I mean, you want to talk about that? But if the person seems like they're sincere, there have been times when fine, I'll go along with this, and ended up making friends and having a good time with somebody. And then that conversation led into a wild, fun play session. Some people just like to have that good old-fashioned interaction to help them relax and feel good about you before they're willing to interact in a sexual way. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Be willing to have that conversation. And a quick story was that I met an elderly, and by elderly, I mean quite a bit older than I am, person in one of these play spaces once. He was very friendly and he was very judicious in the way he spoke with me. And he says, could you please come to my room and we can talk? And I said, okay, all right. Well, we go there and he does the sort of, how are you? This is who I am. Who are you? And he wants to get to know me a little bit before he's willing to go further. And then I end up learning from him that he was married to a woman till he was 80. And then she passed away. And for the first time in this day where we meet each other, he's coming to this place and experimenting and trying out this thing he's always wanted to do all of his life. He asked me questions about how I protect myself sexually in the way of infections and things like that. And I was able to have a nice conversation with this gentleman about STIs, PrEP, DoxyPep. I'm an advocate for those things. And so it enabled me to share with him that I use all of those measures myself and that whatever we would do together is safe. And that if he's going to experiment like this, he can talk to his doctor and get onto those programs as well. We just had a really nice conversation is what I'm getting at. And then we ended up having a good time together after that. But it was because I was willing to go that extra mile and not be afraid to actually have a conversation. This is a really important one. Don't be over aggressive and pushy. Respect other people's space. Another story that sort of gets to what this is about is I've gone into a men's club before and had pushy people literally in the hallway, in the entrance, coming right at me and clinging right along to me and wanting to walk straight to my room with me. And I'm kind of like, I just walked in the door, relax a little bit. The minute I walk out of my little space door to go and check the place out, they're waiting for me right there. That is off-putting. If you're that person, don't do that. That's creepy, first of all, but it also indicates It indicates a sense of desperation that's not sexy. Don't be pushy. And also pushy can be like a bully. You can push yourself into other people's scenes, which is the next thing on this list. Don't invite yourself into something that other people are in the business of doing. Sometimes people want to invite other people in, and if you're nearby and you're getting either visual or body signals from them to, yes, please come join us, then that's different than just stepping up and starting to touch them and grab and insert yourself into that situation. Generally, that's not welcomed. And that is a very common etiquette breach that I see in a lot of these places. I'll be with somebody, interacting with them, and next thing you know, there's somebody that neither one of us are interested in inserting themselves into our scene. And we have to either tell them no, or we have to leave that space and go find somewhere else to be. And that person probably thinks that we had a bad attitude, right? Or that we were giving them the cold shoulder. In reality, it's them who inserted themselves into the situation. It's them who didn't ask consent. And in that way, learn to accept a no response and don't take it personally. When somebody says, no, I'm not interested, or no, not right now, or you get a tap that is pushing your hand away, don't take that personally. Don't get angry about that. You don't know what that person's looking for. You don't know what that person's into. Did you ask them? Take no for an answer, right? Don't keep pushing. Don't be that pushy, aggressive person that doesn't hear the word no. I have been in a steam room once where a guy came up to me and he started getting all over me, and I said, I'm good right now. And he paused for like 2 seconds and started getting all over me again. And I said, I'm good right now. And I ended up actually having to get gruff with him, and he really kind of walked off in a tiff, like I was being a bad person. Like I had the attitude, like I was giving him the business. But the bottom line is he was told no twice, and he had to be told no a third time. So you need to learn to accept that, because at the end of the day, you don't know what the other people are looking for. You don't know what they want. You don't know what they're into. And just because they may look like you doesn't mean that they're looking to interact with a mirror. If all of these concepts are things that you hear from people a lot, wherever you go, there you are. There is a great book out there that not only did I learn a lot from and reinforced a lot of these things that I already knew, it's called Analog Cruising by Leo Herrera. This book is amazing. Not only does it teach people who don't really have the cruising ideas in mind, that don't have all of the practices down, but it has a big section on etiquette. And there's different etiquette for different spaces. There's different etiquette at a club or a bar than you might find at a sex club or sex party, or that you might find in a cruising space like in a park or anywhere else you might go. There are different situational etiquette sets for those different places, because back to the consent conversation, there's implied consent in certain locations and spaces. And there are other spaces where you need to start at the very first level of touching or kissing. May I touch you? May I kiss you? Even if you're my age or older, it never hurts to get a refresher course. And Leo, this book is entertaining, it's fun, and very illuminating. Yeah. Now it's time for viewer comments. Last week we talked about a missing person, Michael Bain, and we spoke about the 1-year anniversary of Marcus Freiberger. And when we record these episodes, they tend to be recorded 2 to 3 days in advance of the drop date, which is always Sunday on our podcast forums. And it is always, most often, a day or two early on Saturday on our YouTube channel. And we talked about a missing person, Michael Bain, in the Phoenix, Arizona area. And unfortunately, he was found dead on the Friday before our episode went live. And we did have a viewer comment that he had been found, updating us on the fact that we were still talking about him being missing, and to contact the police if you had any information. And unfortunately, this is just part of the deal when you have content like this that is created ahead of time. And I had a feeling something would pop before we actually went live over the weekend, and it unfortunately did. Michael has been found, and they are investigating what happened to him. If you know anything about Michael Bain and what might have happened to him, we still don't know. Contact the Mesa Police or the Tempe Police in Arizona. And so if you have any viewer comments, you can drop them on our YouTube channel or send me an email, sam@growingoldergay.com. And that goes to our website and our events. We have an events calendar on our website that has events all over the country all year long that are LGBTQ centric. You can click on the contact button there on our website to submit events that we might add to our calendar, as well as I can talk about right here. And you can also email me directly, again, sam@growingoldergay.com. And that's our episode for today. You can find us on social media all throughout the week, every day. Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky. We don't do the X. I think I said that before. And Growing Older Gay is our handle. It's our handle pretty much everywhere you look. That's why we're called that. It was the one name that was available everywhere on the planet. And our podcast, again, Growing Older Gay, and that's available pretty much anywhere you're going to find a podcast. And YouTube, where you can see me right now wearing my beautiful gold and blue singlet. And if you are watching me on YouTube, you can see our latest video right there. And you can also subscribe to our YouTube channel right there. If you're on the podcast, subscribe there. And please leave a really nice review. Until next week, see you then.